So the last piece in terms of application, and this is something that I would absolutely and have said to school leaders, but also would just kind of offer to you in terms of the work that you do, either with other grown-ups or in particular thinking about with youth, this idea of cognitive load. And it's the same idea with kind of what's on people's plate, what can we control, what can't we control. But I really like focusing on things that we can control. And this idea of cognitive load is one of the things that we can look at. So we think of types of cognitive load. There's these three different kinds. So this intrinsic cognitive load, so the task difficulty, so how hard is a task. This is often something that in the moment we do not have any control over. So whether kind of an expectation is going to be easy for someone to meet or not easy to meet is often based on what's happened before that moment or will happen later. It's often not in the moment. So that's a tough one sometimes to control. Kind of this idea of germane cognitive load, so connecting the dots. So how does what I'm learning now connect to things in the past? This is something that we want to do to build a stronger brain architecture to make it easier to input more information. There are ways that we can help with that, help people build connections, give people time to build connections. But one of the things that we absolutely do have control over is this extraneous component. So what is the rest of the noise that's happening as we're trying to do something new? We're trying to teach new content. We're trying to help people learn how to do new things. And this extraneous noise is real, and often it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for students. It can be overwhelming for grown-ups. I think about a lot of professional development that I've attended or I've heard of or I've probably done, where the amount of extraneous cognitive load collapsed all of the learning effort because there was just too much going on, right? There's too much outside of the learning that it was just too distracting. And so there's lots of different things that we can do around this cognitive load piece. We can just be aware that it's a thing. I think a lot of times, especially I'm thinking of like a basic, we're trying to teach someone how to do something. We teach it, and then when they can't do it right away or they can't do it in the amount of time that we expect them to, we think that there's something wrong, either with them or with us, right? Something didn't happen, it didn't work. But just being aware that there's other stuff that's happening, right? This is not a like direct one-to-one kind of linear relationship where, I say something and then it happens. That's not how this works. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on. It's helpful to make those connections explicit. So that idea of that germane cognitive load. So if things do connect, make it really explicit. Point to a calendar. If you learned some, if you're teaching a new concept, but it connects to something that was learned last week, point to it on a calendar. Talk about what you were wearing that day. Talk about it was really cold that day. Give kind of those context clues around that component. The last professional development, the professional development where we ate all of the Halloween candy, right? Give a little clue of kind of how it connects. Give time and space to process and connect. So as we're trying to either ourselves learn new things that are really tough or expecting others to, offering that information and that learning space and kind of giving some time to like breathe, mindfulness, right? Ground ourselves, let our brain do the work of helping the neurons connect and giving space to do that. Be purposeful, clear, and concise as much as possible. If you're not, entirely clear what your goal is for this part of this thing that you're teaching, or this thing that you're trying to help other people learn how to do, revisit what you're doing and make sure that goal makes a lot of sense. Be clear and concise. Use routine, as much as possible. We talked about that before, and name the feeling. So kind of one of the things that we can do, and we did it with the check-in, with the feelings, and then kind of talking about with psychological safety, is just saying out loud, this is really hard. This feels really hard. Let's take a second and take some deep breaths so that we can all make sure that our brains are catching up, and just name it. Name it out loud. You don't have to have therapy. You don't have to talk through it. You don't have to process it, but just naming that this is really hard. This is tough to kind of connect, and putting that out there. So just a few ideas of kind of how this can apply kind of in different sort of situations, but specifically to the classroom and in offering that content.